going to hand around the attendance form, so whoever gets to the end, you guys can drop it back off with him before you leave, whoever is in the back. So this is the second of our leadership series. I hope some of you got to make it last week. Here, Bill Mazzillo from GM. If not, we still have 2 more to go after this one. So next week we will have, who did I just say that we have next week? Now I'm forgetting.
The basketball?
Next week we have Dominique Bowden.
Yes.
Who's a guard for the Purdue women's basketball team and a junior in civil engineering. Talk a little bit about her experience and leadership. And then in the last week we have Dr. Chuck Dietzen, who's the founder of Kimmy Global Health, a really inspiring speaker. I know you'll really enjoy that talk, so I hope you can show up for those. So please help me welcome today. We have Amy Wood, who is the Director of Volunteer Engagement with the United Way of Greater Lafayette.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. So I'm going to tell you right now, I talk with my hands. I'm a very animated person. But thank you for letting me come and share my story with you, so to speak. I am the Director of Volunteer Engagement at United Way. What that means is a lot of different things. I run our volunteer center within United Way that is basically the connection of the community to volunteerism with organizations. How many of you have heard of United Way? That's good. Could anybody tell me what United Way does? A little harder, Wood. Okay, that's not uncommon, unfortunately. But United Way is actually a worldwide organization. We are one organization that within the overall, we work for education, income, and health is our main stances that we are involved with our own projects and our own programs, which is a new concept for United Way. So traditionally, United Way used to be a organization that's a fundraiser. So right now, we're in campaign time. We are fundraising $5.5 million to give to 21 organizations within the Greater Lafayette area, as well as our own programs. I myself is one of those programs with the Volunteer Center. So that's what I do now, but I thought I'd share with you a little bit about my personal journey of how I have come to be where I am, and maybe even a little bit of where I hope to go from here. So I started off in my career as a single mother, and I went into the nonprofit or into the for-profit world. I mainly took jobs that I knew would be flexible, being a single mother, that I could be able to be there for my children when they needed me and be able to attend their activities and everything. I loved the work I did. I worked for a bank for many years. Then I went into I was recruited by an investment advisory firm that I worked for many, many years. And it was there that I really started I was not one, out of high school, I didn't want to go to college actually, and chose to get married and have children, but didn't expect to end up being unmarried. But it was within that job at my investment advisory firm that I was doing all the accounting for the organization, for 2 organizations, not only his accounting firm, but Dr. Pample also had a dentist office in DeMont, Indiana, where he had $1 million practice. So I found myself doing all of their book work and taking care of HR duties and everything within the organization. That led me to decide that maybe I do want to go to school. So I started off at Ivy Tech, took me several years to get my associate's degree in accounting, which was doing great. And then as my children grew and moved on, I decided it was time to move back to Lafayette from where I originally came from. And I wanted to be closer to my family. And that's when I was asked by someone within the United Way if they knew I was moving back to Lafayette and wanted to know if I would consider a job. So I started out just the administrative assistant. I'm going to change that, not just the administrative assistant. I was the administrative assistant, and I learned so much from that when I started out at United Way. But I can tell you, one week in, I knew I was home. I knew nonprofit was what I should have been working my entire life. It was just a natural fit. I couldn't learn enough. I wanted to learn as much about everything as I could. I stayed within that administrative assistant position where I audited that $5 million campaign I was telling you about. I audited every single donation that went through to make sure it was all correct and getting their information correct, and then would pass it on to put someone else to put it into the system and so forth. There's lots of steps in there. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then the opportunity came up that our volunteer center, which used to be a funded organization by United Way as the Lafayette Volunteer Bureau, but in 2006 was enveloped into United Way as part of a program at United Way. And it was doing all right with the past volunteer coordinators is what they were called, or assistants back then. And they challenged me and said we wanted to know if I wanted to try to take over the organization and the program and try to grow it. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been at United Way now for 10 years. I'm in my 11th year. I've spent the majority of my time with the Volunteer Center. And I have taken it to be in over 100 organizations. I'm still looking to try to build it even further because we have over 200 nonprofit organizations in our community, and I'd love for every single one of them to be on there if possible. And I also spend a lot of my time learning about everything I can about all the nonprofits that we have. Obviously, with over 200, I don't know all of them, but I do know an awful lot of them. And I can definitely be that matchmaker, so to speak. I love to work with people to come in and talk to me and tell me their passions. That's the thing I do. I sit down and I say, what is your passion? What do you love to do? What is your talents? And what can you offer? And this is where it comes into it. I just learned some really amazing things about people, and that actually I can take just about anything you can do and find you a spot within a nonprofit that you can do it in. So as you're thinking about your journeys into leadership yourself, I challenge you to think that a nonprofit world is just like the for-profit world, except the outcome is a little bit more for the human element instead of the money element. So nonprofits definitely struggle. As you get up higher in your leadership levels, you do make a little more. And in some cases, within a large nonprofit, you might make quite a bit more. But the people that work the day in and day out don't, but the fulfillment that they get being in a nonprofit world is fantastic. And if you ask anybody, that's what they do it for. So now I get to find out about people, like there's a data scientist here at Purdue that I sat down and he was telling me his passions and what he likes to do. I was able to match him with Greater Lafayette Commerce, and to take data that they had and he could put it all together and tell them what that data was meaning for them. That's basically, he says that he was also, before he got his degree in data science, he was in marketing. So he can take the two elements together and really take information like emails and how you market out to him and find out what's the best way to market. And so I was able to start putting him in some different organizations that he could use this talent that he has and this skill set that he loves to do as his job. And then I've also sat down with people that knitting is something that comes into mind. And so, there's like organizations where you can knit. One of my favorite nonprofits in the country is called Knitted Knockers. So it's just what it sounds like. It's for women that have had breast cancer and have had mastectomies. And either they're not going to go through surgery for reconstruction, or if they choose to do that, it's a time frame before that happens. So these are these people all across the country are doing these knitting different sizes of breasts, so to speak, to put into their bras that's soft against their skin. And this nonprofit has no employees that are paid. All the women that started it are volunteers themselves. The only money that they raise, which the Baltimore Ravens is one of their biggest fundraisers, that gives them the money to be able to mail them out across the world. So now these are going out. So taking something, a talent, as simple as I can knit, can be such a big impact. That's what I love to do. I love to find out how I can help people. Nothing gives me more of a high than to match somebody to something that they really love to do. And then it's also going to be something that is really going to help a nonprofit. I work a lot with the organizations. Volunteering is very much a footprint for large corporations. To keep all of you that are busy and wanting, to do something all the time and changing, they have to change themselves in what they do for you to keep you as employees. So one of the things they're all returning to is that civic engagement piece. And Caterpillar is an example. That is my prize one here that I work with, that they gave an extra day off across the entire corporation for volunteering, and they get to volunteer in what they choose to do. Also, small departments are constantly going out and taking their talents, and I'm telling you, the footprint of them around this community is amazing, of the things they've built, they've pulled out, they've painted, anything they've put in, they've pretty much have reconstructed Imagination Station. And it's been exciting to be able to match those things with the organizations, which is something that they can't afford to have otherwise. Two of the Caterpillar groups painted an entire Right Steps Child Development Centers that would have cost them to get done $10,000. So in essence, them coming in, they paid for the paint, and they provided the time. They got it done in 8 hours, 4 hours, 2 different days, and painted this entire building for them that saved that organization $10,000. So my journey, my leadership style too, that I'll get back to a little bit, is my journey I've had. So if you would have asked me 10 years ago when I came to United Way that I would possibly be in a director's position, or if I would sit on a board, I would have said, nope, that's not me. It's not what anything I had that I cared to do. Through my experiences over the years, the more passionate I got about the work I do, the more that I have to offer has led me into these leadership positions that I now hold. So I don't know how many of you have done like Myers-Briggs or the Strength Finders and all that, which I'm just like I love those things. I could do those all the time. But so I come off very high as an extrovert, a high extrovert. So, and I do a motivational analysis with people sometimes that shows me that back in the early days, I would have been more of your affiliation type of personality, where I want to be doing things and being hands-on and that and everything. And I said I would never reach that level of leadership. So today, I am actually currently the board president of Almost Home Humane Society. So our Humane Society in Greater Lafayette is a position I'm holding. I just came off of a small nonprofit, Family Promise, that deals with families and homelessness. Just because of the work I need to do with Almost Home, I felt they needed my full attention to be able to do on top of my regular work. So I guess what I'm telling you there is over time you're going to change. So wherever you are right now is okay to be wherever you are, and wherever you are, you know, if you do want to, right now you know that you want to strive for those higher positions, and you might want to be a board president someday, and or something, or maybe a CEO of an organization. That's great, but don't forget along the way to take your time and learn down below too. It's important to know that. I feel like, you know, you have to really embrace the work that's being done with, if you, in any field, for-profit, nonprofit, but definitely nonprofit. Really get to learn about it as much as you can, and that will make you a better leader in the end. So that's kind of my journey. I don't know, how long did I talk? About 15 minutes. Any questions you have for me?
What are some red flags that you've seen early on in nonprofits that you suggest avoiding?
So red flags would definitely be checking the stability of the nonprofit. So you've got a lot of people that have good hearts and want to do good work, but doesn't necessarily have the mind to be able to do it efficiently and effectively. So looking at financial statements, making sure they're good fiduciaries, you know, with the money, making sure the donation money is going to be used properly, because that's how they survive, is either on grants or donations. So you want to make sure they're just fiscally sound in using the money in a good way, would be my recommendation.
So as an outsider, how could we determine whether this nonprofit organization is legit or not?
So they do have to go through, they're just like any kind of, they have to fill out the I-9s and all of that. So they have to apply with the government to be a nonprofit, a 501(c)(3). They have to follow the same, you know, we have doing tax returns, and all of that stuff all has to happen the same as any corporation would. So if it doesn't have those things in place, that's definitely a red flag. If someone, you know, and you'll get to, a lot of times you hear about, you know, some embezzlements and stuff that happen, and sometimes those are happening on smaller levels. So it'll be within a soccer organization that, you know, has been started up by somebody that had a good heart and wanted to do it. Next thing you know, where did all this money go to? They didn't go through the proper steps of putting everything in place for having those checks and balances. So you can go and check them out on the government. There's a website you can check to make sure they're a legitimate nonprofit. Good question. So what are some of your guys' talents and treasures? What do you have? How many of you have volunteered with a nonprofit? Good number of you? Huh? So I know in this day and age, it's to get into college. A lot of times you have to do some in the high school level, but then in college, this is the opportunity for you guys to explore. You know, this is really exciting. I'm working with an EPICS group right now. Have been for a few years with Dr. Lindsay Payne, that is here too. Doctor, isn't it? Yes, and. That they're creating a portal for Purdue, actually, so we can connect the nonprofits to be able to apply for service learning classes, and the faculty can choose those and look at those and build around them. So I've been working closely for several years with Lindsay that on this portal, and I think we're going to get it finished here soon. So while you're, you know, while you're in college and have this time, I challenge you to go out and search out the nonprofits in Greater Lafayette and find something that you can do and while you're in school and offer, because I can tell you they would love to have the knowledge that you're gaining. You can be a really great benefit. And I don't mean, you know, like an internships if you have to do any of those. But if you do have to do internships, I know a lot of times within, I think within engineering and stuff, you'll a lot of times go to big corporations, correct? Maybe consider a nonprofit instead.
Going back to leadership, I was wondering if you could talk about some of the key learning moments you've had in your career growing as a leader.
That's a great question. I'd say most recently, I've found out what type of leadership style I am. Is more of a collaborative, and also I feel like I take on a strong responsibility to make sure any interns I get in the office, I take it personally that I am there to help shape and help them find the most that they can get out of it. And so I'm a very collaborative type of person. I work together. I like to give you direction, and you can go and do it. So I'm not someone that's just overseeing you and every step you're making. But I also want to know that it's my responsibility to make sure that you're getting the best, that they are getting the best out of me as a leader. So. Does that answer your question?
So I guess you spoke about some of the things that you've learned yourself about what the best leadership style is for you. What are some experiences you've had that shaped that? So maybe something went wrong, or you went into a new position or something, or maybe a position that didn't fit you very well. Like, how did you figure out what your leadership style was and what you enjoyed and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So I think going back to, first of all, in the for-profit world, the last job I had before that, I worked many years with the registered investment advisory firm. I guess I learned my voice because I had to fight for a few things as a woman. I remember going into my boss at one time, who I dearly loved. He was a wonderful man and a wonderful person to work for. But he was telling me to give someone a raise one time. And the reason was he was getting married. So he now had a family to take care of. And I remember that just hit me, and I just looked at him and I said, what do you think I'm doing, playing house? And he sort of was like, oh, I guess. So I think that's when I really started to stand up for myself and realizing that I had to fight for what I wanted, and I've done that ever since. So I'm much more willing to go in and talk about things that I feel I deserve, that I've worked hard for, and why I should work for them. So and that's what's helped me along. So when I first started with the Volunteer Center, it was just under our impact department, and so it was just like a volunteer associate position. And when my new CEO came to town, and my first meeting with him, the first thing I told him was, I said, I think we have this wrong. I said, I believe my job should be director because I'm an arm of the organization. I'm a service arm of the organization, and I feel like I should be a direct report to you and not to our impact. And he said, you know what, I think you're right. And so I think learning along the ways of being afraid and timid and holding back and trying to be in my place and doing the right things didn't get me very far. But the more I learned my voice and learned to stand up for myself, the farther I've been getting. And the same way with this board presidency. We I didn't expect to be board president quite so soon in reality, but the board is in a need of, basically the organization's needing to do some serious work coming up. They're a humane society that's running out of room for the animals that they take care of, and the board wasn't really a good working board to get that done. So So Stacy, the executive director, she sort of sought me and a few other key people out that she felt would understand what we needed to do to move the organization forward. And our current board president had to step down for health reasons. And so we were talking about how we were going to try to work into maybe having me be president and Keir as vice president, and because the vice president was stepping down too. And in a board meeting, it was just like going crazy, and someone else just went, "I'll do it." Like it was just like a flippant, job. And I just was like, oh no, this can't happen. And so I sort of said, I just would like to stop and slow down and say, I think we really need to think about this more strategically. And I was considering putting my name in the hat for your consideration of being president. And they immediately went, okay, we want you to do it. So now I'm doing things. Some of them are not happy with some of the things I'm doing, but they ultimately trusted me to be able, and I had to do that, stand up and take on. So I'm going to be, I'm prepared for the work, and I believe in myself that I can do the work. But it did come a little more quickly than I expected. So being prepared for changes like that is a good thing to do as well. What else?
With your increasing responsibilities, how have you dealt with overcommitment and being able to protect your own time?
That's very good. You have to, and that took me a while to learn the word no. And I just did. Like I said, the other board I was on also needs quite a bit of work on it, and I know that executive director was also looking for my guidance to help move it along. But with taking on the presidency so fast of the other one, I had to go back to her and tell her, it's not going to be fair to you, and it's not going to be fair to me to take this role on right now. So I said, I'm going to step back. And she immediately, she didn't want to lose me completely, so she asked if I would sit on committee level and consider being on some committees, and I said I would be more than happy to do that. So being very obvious, respectful of your time is really important too, because if you just give every minute of your day away, you're not going to do anything well. Because so you really have to think through what is going to be the most effective and what I can do, what I might have to say no to in order to do a better job over here. So kind of learning that your boundaries is really important. And you'll probably, if you're a yes person like me that wants to just do it, I just want to please everybody, so it's like yes, 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 I had to learn that that's not the best thing for anybody. So it's gotten to that point. I've had to say no to several things that I feel just wasn't right for them. It wasn't right for me to not have the time to get them. Yes.
What are some examples of direct engineering that you've seen come out of nonprofits?
So that's a tough one. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it's going to be there. So I would say there's really any kind of field. You think about a nonprofit as really it's just like a for-profit. So you can definitely have about any skill set that you can take into it. And so the city of Lafayette would be maybe an example. So it's a nonprofit, municipal type of position, but you have engineers that sit on your street departments and things and all of those. And you're going to have the same type of things within other nonprofits. So Niche's Land Trust, they would definitely have some positions that would be environmental engineering type of things. My sister is the new superintendent of Parks and Recreations for the city of West Lafayette, and her background came from nonprofits, so she switched over to doing the municipal work. So, and she's loving it. She says it's, you know, she's spent in her entire life in nonprofit with YMCA's, but now she's switched it more to the city, and she's just really enjoying it. So really, I think if it's something you're interested into, it's out there. Or if there's something you can do to start your own, that's also a possibility too. So self-starts on a lot of things are for nonprofits is kind of exciting to do.